They say every man's got a story he keeps tucked away for the coldest nights, when the wind won't let you sleep and memories rise like smoke from old coals. This one's mine. A tale I don't speak much, but some things stick to your ribs no matter how many years roll by. I learned what it meant to be truly alone out in the wild, and what it felt like when that loneliness finally broke, like a thunderstorm busting open after months of drought. The winter I turned 23, the whole territory seemed shriveled up from hardship. Folks in Lonesome Hollow, Arizona, whispered about me, called me the ghost girl by the creek. I can't say I blamed 'em. I kept to myself after my folks passed. Pa swallowed up in a shaft collapse. Ma taken by fever so quick, I still half expect her to call my name when the wind comes off the ridge. My cabin was a ways from town, across the Willow Flats, so quiet you could hear your own blood pumping if you listened close. 7 years out there, and I reckon I knew every crack in the window glass, every creak of the porch boards. People were decent enough, kept their distance, brought me sewing to mend, maybe a pie at Christmas time. But nobody hugged me, not since I was a little girl. Not one soul in all those years. I told myself I preferred it, that solitude was a shield. I believed that lie most days, until the night he rode in. The sun had just slipped behind the buttes, painting everything that gold and purple color you only get in the high country. I was out front, needle and thread in hand, patching up a skirt for Mrs. Abernathy. That's when I heard the hoofbeats, slow and heavy, like whoever was coming had the weight of the world strapped to his saddle. I looked up, and there he was. A stranger on a black horse, face shadowed, eyes that reminded me of a summer storm, all steel and sorrow. You could tell right away he was running from something, maybe the grave, maybe himself. He didn't say much at first, just let his horse drink at my creek and nodded polite. When he finally spoke, it was like gravel sliding down a tin roof, rough, low, careful. "Evenin', miss. Know of any place a man might find a roof for the night?" His accent put him from somewhere east, but his eyes said he'd seen a lot of this world. I should have sent him on his way, but something in me, it's hard to say what, broke loose. "You can bunk in my barn," I offered, more bold than I felt. "It's dry, and the horse'll like the straw." I figured that'd be the end of it. But I cooked up beans and cornbread anyway, and next thing I knew he was at my little table, hands folded, eyes cast down like he was waiting for a verdict. He told me his name was Silas Boone. Later, I'd learn he was carrying grief heavier than a pack mule, wife and little girl, taken by sickness the year before. At that table, though, all I saw was a man doing his best to outrun his ghosts. I knew a little about that myself. Days slid by. Silas fixed a busted fence, mended a hinge, kept mostly to himself. I watched him from the corner of my eye, telling myself it was curiosity. Truth was, I liked having another heartbeat close, even if we barely spoke. The silences weren't sharp anymore. They were soft, companionable, like the hush after a rain. Then came the morning I found him down by the creek, staring into the water like he hoped it might wash away whatever haunted him. I brought him coffee, sat down without a word. He started talking, voice cracked at the edges, about his little girl, Emma, the way she'd collect stones from a river back home. I put my hand over his, and Lord, it was like touching a lightning rod. I hadn't meant to, but the sadness in his voice made something inside me ache. He looked at me, really looked, and for a minute, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. From then on, it was different between us. He brought me desert wildflowers, scraggly things, but beautiful in their stubbornness. I started laughing again, real laughter, the kind that sneaks up on you when you think all your joys run out. The walls I'd built started crumbling. I caught him watching me sometimes, his eyes softer than I ever thought possible. One night, the sky cracked open, thunder rolling in hard and mean, rain lashing the cabin till the roof shivered. I've always hated storms. Maybe it's silly, but when I was a child, lightning set our place aflame, and I never lost that fear. I was shaking so bad I dropped my sewing needle. Then, 3 sharp knocks at the door. It was Silas, soaked to the bone, looking worried as a dog in a butcher shop. "You all right?" he hollered over the wind. I didn't answer, just yanked him inside and stood there, dripping, both of us breathing hard. I tried to joke about storms scaring me, but my voice came out wobbly. "You don't have to face it alone," he said. I flinched when the thunder cracked again, and before I knew it, I was pressed up against him, my face buried in his chest. That man put his arms around me, real gentle, real sure. I felt his heartbeat, steady and calm, and all at once, the fear went quiet. I'd never been held like that, not by anyone. I didn't want to let go. He looked down at me, eyes full of questions, and for once, I had an answer. I kissed him, awkward at first, but hungry for something I didn't know I'd been missing. After, we sat on the old sofa while the storm faded, my head on his shoulder, his hand tangled in my hair. I slept in his arms that night, safe for the first time in 7 years. If you think that was the happy ending, you don't know much about frontier towns. Next morning, the whispers started, louder this time, sharper. I felt eyes on me when I walked down Main Street, heard the way Mrs. Fletcher's tone cooled when she handed me my flower. The worst of it was Doc Harlan, the one man I thought would stand by me. "Evelyn," he said. Evelyn was my real name, Evelyn Rose. "You're making talk for yourself, letting that stranger stay. Town doesn't look kindly on women living with a man they ain't married to." I told him it was none of the town's business, but the words stung. Silas saw the hurt when I came home. He was hammering new boards onto the porch, sunburned and frowning. "I should go," he said. "I never meant to put trouble on your doorstep." I panicked. "You don't have to go, unless you want to." I paused, heart pounding, then blurted out the only solution I could see. "We could make it official, marry me. That'd shut them up." He stared at me, like I'd knocked the wind out of him. "You sure about that, Evelyn? You hardly know me." His voice was thick with warning, and a hope so fragile it nearly broke me. I looked at him, really looked, saw the sorrow and the hunger for something better. "I know enough. I know I'd rather take the risk than go back to being alone." He kissed me then, soft and fierce. "All right," he said. "Let's do it." We walked into town together, arm in arm, heads high. Reverend Barton, old as the hills but sharp as a knife, asked a heap of questions. "You know what you're doing, girl?" I told him I did. Silas just stood tall, hand steady in mine. The wedding was nothing fancy. A few townsfolk crowded into the little church, some with frowns, some with hopeful smiles. I wore a dress I'd sewn myself, cream silk, plain but decent. As I walked down the aisle, my knees trembled, but when I saw Silas waiting, all the fear drained out like bad whiskey. He said his vows in that gravel voice, promising to cherish me, build a home together. I told him I'd walk with him through sorrow and joy, come what may. When the Reverend pronounced us man and wife, it felt like the world shifted, like I was stepping out of my old skin and into something wild and bright. Afterwards, folks brought pie and played fiddle out behind the church. Some stayed away, but I didn't care. Silas held my hand, and for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch from being seen. But you want to know what really stuck with me? That night, the desert cooling fast, the sky stretched wide with stars, Silas and I sat on the porch. No big words, just the quiet buzz of crickets, the warmth of his arm around me. I thought of all the years I'd spent wishing for something I couldn't name, and now it was here, sitting beside me, solid as the mountains. I'd fought like hell for my place in that world, and I'd be damned if I'd let it slip away, no matter what the neighbors thought. If you're wondering how it all turned out, you'll have to find another fire to sit by. Some stories ain't meant to be finished, not by me. All I'll say is this: you'd be surprised what a person's willing to risk just to feel a heartbeat next to their own.